Good evening, I'm Ben Slotnick. Today was definitely one of the worst days in sports history. Um, it's terrible when you see anybody die at a young age and they don't deserve to, especially his daughter, 13. And he's got a family that's got to move on. It's going to take a while. I'm sure about that, but this isn't the first time something like this has happened to a major athlete. Lou Gehrig, 37 years old, died of what is now Lou Gehrig's disease, and Roberto Clemente giving aid to the Dominican Republic by plane. And he was 38, died in a plane crash. It was terrible, terrible events that have happened in sports along the way. I'm going to talk about college basketball now. This week was kind of an eventful week, especially in the Pac-12 this weekend. On Saturday, Arizona State, down by 13 at the half. They chipped away from an 18-plus point lead going in to the last few minutes, but they ended up winning that game by one. And I don't know what happened in that second half, what kind of spark it was, but you see this happen so many times. The team just connects after a break, and usually at half. You saw Michigan football happen the second half of the Penn State game earlier this season, perfect example. And they go on a roll. It doesn't matter who you're playing against tough competition. That's Big Ten football in that example. But ASU, this week, tough stretch at Wazoo and at Washington, road trip in that state. And Washington State's a well-improved team from last year. They're 12-9 as well as Washington. Washington, a disappointing season. In fact, the only team to beat number one Baylor beating Oklahoma and at Florida this week. Florida seemed to be a possible trap game in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, but Baylor handled it well. Jumped to a big 18-point lead at one point in the second half. And Baylor's rolling, and they're still going to be number one. Gonzaga keeps rolling over their cupcake opponents. Cal just beat Stanford, 15-3 Stanford at 8-10 Cal. Cal was trailing by 11 at one point in that game, and number 15, Ntijevich on Cal, the center, was playing with 4 fouls towards the end of the game, was watching it, and there were 2 possessions that Stanford had where they drove in for easy layups because he was afraid to play defense. He had to foul, and if you were to foul, you'd get fouled out with 5, but late in the game with a minute and a half to go, he drives in for a layup on a guard, and guard draws a charge, and he had 4 fouls at that time as well. So either way, someone was getting fouled out on that play. If it was a block or a charge, but Cal sparked late, hit a shot with under 15 seconds left. Or excuse me, with 3 seconds left, they were fouled. 2 free throws at the line. And Stanford drew up a great play with 3 seconds left, a wide open half-court pass. Travels all the way across, and as the buzzer was sounding, the ball was released, and no basket was the original call from the officials. So big upset win for Cal. Indiana, the team that had a very eventful week at Assembly Hall, knocks off number 11 Michigan State in Bloomington. And Indiana's 15-4, riding a lot of momentum going into today's game, home against Maryland. Maryland is trailing almost the whole second half, and Maryland somehow wins the game by 1 point, 77-76. Indiana had a halfway decent look with about 4 seconds left, but just great defense by Maryland. And those are the kind of games that are the differences between a great team and a good team. Maryland showed today that not necessarily that they're a great team, but they're not going to give up. I mean, that's one of the toughest environments to play in American sports, especially college basketball. And they took care of business towards the end, and great win for the Terrapins. And I think Indiana will still be in the top 25 going to this week due to their win against Michigan State. And another Big Ten team, Michigan, is really struggling right now. 4 straight losses, losing to Illinois at home, blew a lead late. I mean, they were fighting back with Illinois, but they were up by 2 towards the end. And I think they're a little bit less than a bubble team right now. They're the thing that's keeping them in it is when they beat Gonzaga, when they beat UNC, their quality win against, it was really just, Gonzaga is their obvious claim to fame, and as a top 4 team, probably will end up at either number 1 or number 2 by the end of the year. And another Big Ten team, Rutgers, played at Iowa, their first game as a ranked opponent, and I don't know how long. They haven't made the tournament in 30 years. One of the biggest droughts in college basketball, but they fought with Iowa the whole game, lose by 5 at Carver Hawkeye, and that's great competition. And then they end up beating Nebraska with a few seconds left on the clock, 75-72 on a 3-pointer. That was an exciting game, and Illinois keeps rolling. Illinois and Rutgers, man, those are 2 teams that haven't seen March in a long, long time. And I think that there's a very good chance that at least one of those 2 teams is going to make it this year. Michigan and Ohio State, though, struggling a lot. Ohio State just beat Northwestern on the road, but nothing to celebrate about that one. It was a must-win game, though, after losing home against Minnesota with 3 seconds left. Minnesota hit a 3 to take a 72-69 lead, and they won by that score. And ACC Hoops, UNC is going to get Cole Anthony back anytime now, possibly tomorrow in Raleigh against the Wolfpack, rivalry night. And NC State, by the way, blew a lead against Georgia Tech towards late in the game. They were battling out as well. A lot of exciting games this week in college basketball. Oregon beating USC in double overtime as well. But San Diego State keeps rolling too. The UNLV gave them a scare, though, in Las Vegas. But the top 4 teams going next week, it'll still be in no particular order, by the way. Baylor, Gonzaga. I'm actually going to put Florida State in there and San Diego State. I think Florida State, and sorry, not the rankings, but my 4 best teams at the moment. Those are 4 teams that have really impressed me so far. San Diego State especially, because they haven't played much competition. They beat Creighton by 30, though. They beat Iowa. They beat BYU. And those are their 3 best wins, really. And Iowa's going to end up being the one that might differentiate them from being a 2 or 3 seed if they end up losing a game in the regular season. Because if you lose one and you're a team like San Diego State and you've got those quality wins, you've scheduled tough non-conference opponents, then you have a better chance of getting the highest seed possible, obviously, because, just like being a bubble team, the quality wins matter the most. A bubble team, especially right now, is Ohio State. I don't think Michigan is going to make the tournament as long. If they go 1 game above 500 for the rest of the year, maybe. But Ohio State also is one of those teams that has declined a lot. They were at one point considered to be one of the best teams in the country after they beat UNC by 25 plus points. So that's what college basketball is, though. It's full of surprises. That's why it's one of the best leagues, in my opinion, in the world in general, especially the best collegiate sport. You just never know what's going to happen in college basketball. So again, terrible day in sports, but we got to move on. It's especially going to take a while for his family. Thank you for listening. Good night.